Coming on the crowded booth with Bryce Coon.
Hey, Ralph, that was fun.
It was.
That was fun. We had a lot of fun with that. Hey, everybody, we welcome you to another episode of the Crowded Booth Live. It's a Monday night, 8 p.m., new start time, and Ralph, a new look. What do you think? Ralph, how do you like it? I showed it to you early this afternoon. What do you think?
I love it. I mean, we get to see our sponsors on there from now on at all times. So if you don't know who our sponsors are, you do now.
And look, too, you got right above me, you got Crowded Booth with Bryce Coon. Mm-hmm. Then you've got Ralph, point above, presented by Section 103. That's one of our new sponsors. You're going to see their ad tonight. And the bottom top right corner, very small, you have our logo. Ralph, can you hit it? No, other way.
It's very awkward for me.
Other way. There you go. Like Down here.
There we go.
Down here, you have Cook's Place Hot Dogs in Columbus, one of our big sponsors. We're excited about that. Then right here, follow us on social media. And then, Ralph, hit our website. Right there we go, crowdedbooth.com. We have Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. We're excited to have you. We're excited you're here. Hey, make sure, once again, this is for you. We love talking to you. Bring in your comments. Because, Ralph, we've got an action-packed show, but there's some important order of business that we have to get to. Obviously, we have the introduction. Obviously, you need to follow us on social media. That's Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at The Crowded Booth. Ralph, we released our power rankings today. I want to point the people to it. So what was your big thing about the power rankings? Maybe one of your big takeaways. Obviously, we had Oregon sitting at number 3. Oklahoma still number 4. Iowa number 5. But there's some teams starting to creep in. If they have good seasons, they could see themselves getting a really good shot at the college football playoff coming into the year.
Well, I mean, there's one team in there, I think. We had A&M in there, didn't we?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if A&M's going to stay because Haynes King, I believe, is out for the year.
Mm-hmm.
Their starting quarterback is pronounced out for the year, so they're starting over at quarterback again. So they still had a struggle win against Colorado over the weekend. They still have a tough schedule. They still got to play Alabama, Auburn, and LSU. So
listen, they've got to play a tough schedule, and really, people thought aside from Georgia Clemson, that Texas A&M Alabama game was going to be the one to watch. We'll have to see what happens there. We're going to talk college football, and we're going to talk a couple other things. Once again, you got to hit the new sponsor, Ralph. Can I get you to point at it real quick again, up at the top? Presented by Section 103. You're going to hear about them from later on in the show. It's a cool brand. Ralph's got a shirt coming. I've got one that I'm going to be wearing on the show. Hey, and you get also an awesome deal, 10% off if you use the code Crowded Booth at section103.com. Right now, they have Georgia Tech gear. They're expanding, though, and continue to do that as well. We're going to talk a little bit later on about that. But, Ralph, here's the big thing. We're starting this new segment. Now, we used to do Question of the Day. That's going to stay on Wednesday nights. But now we have, and I want to go back to our script, Sunday app. What is our Sunday apps? So this is going to be what Ralph and I go eat on the weekend. Usually we try to frequent at least one time on the weekend. We go get a nice appetizer. So, Ralph, hit me with this right here. Sunday, we walk into Buffalo Wild Wings, week 1 of NFL Sunday. And what was it, like a 40, 30, 45-minute wait? We're like, no. Now, anyone familiar in the area knows Columbus Park Crossing is right there, and you're limited on options. It was, hi, welcome to Chili's, shout out Josh Brown, or are you going to go to Smoky Bones? We chose the latter. Overall grade was a 4.7 out of 10 on the meal in general, especially since our waitress, Ralph, I know she's not watching, but good grief. I mean, you ordered barbecue potato chips, and the lady completely forgot it 5 seconds after you ordered it.
Yeah, that was bad.
It's okay. Hit me with your appetizer, though. What was your appetizer? And tell me what your appetizer was not, and then follow up with what it was.
Well, at first I chose onion rings, and when she looked at me, she goes, "Oh, we don't have onion rings," and she goes, "We haven't had them for 5 months." And I'm like, "Well, why do you still have them on the menu?"
I mean, like 5 months is a substantial amount of time to not have onion rings. I almost said
And
onion
then
rings.
I got fried pickles, which were below average fried pickles. Obviously, you can't really mess them up, but they found a way to make them kind of taste kind of bad. So.
They weren't great, and the ranch wasn't good. It came with. I, on the other hand, went with some, and correct me if I'm wrong, it was like Texas cheese fries or something along those lines with their barbecue sauce. They were pretty good. The serving size was too small, though, for 2 people. I'll say that. So Smoky Bones, Ralph, we're going to score out of 10 on the apps. You got an app, I got an app. What are we rolling with on the appetizer? Score 1 out of 10.
I got a 3.
3. I'm going 3 as well. Smoky Bones finishes at a 3 out of 10. Yeah, just not the good. We got to get back to some of those questions today. Remember we did the wing challenge that one time?
That was fun. That was
fun.
Everyone got hungry while we were just sitting here eating wings the whole time.
I for sure did. No, it was a fun time though. Obviously, NFL Sunday came back. We're not going to talk about that because we're Falcons fans. Ralph's not a Falcons fan anymore, but it's okay. We're going to talk a little bit about some other things. Obviously, in the sport of college football, where Ralph. Listen, we've got a special guest coming on. We've got a fun-filled, hour-packed show, so Ralph can go to bed right afterwards. We are not sponsored by Adidas. Ralph loves to bring in branded content for product placement purposes. There we go. And I don't think it's fine. It's fine. But make sure to find us on social media as well. We're having fun. Leave a comment, like, share with your friends, share with people you don't like. If you don't like the show, share with people who you don't like, so they have to watch something that you don't like. Who knows? But hey, Ralph. We're going to dive right into some great content right here. First off, college football recap. We're going to do a quick wraparound. We have 2 teams that we're not going to go necessarily very much in depth with because we're going to go in depth with them later on in the show. Yeah. But let's just hit some of the quick hitters. Spend a couple moments on this before we bring our guest in our first commercial break. Isn't that nice to say, first commercial break, because it means we have a second? Yeah, it means we have a second. Let's talk a little bit about this. Ohio State and Oregon. Want to start you off with this one because the Oregon Ducks had a program-defining win, I think, under Mario Cristobal. This was his first big win as head coach. And you can say Bryce Way had some other wins. To go on the road into Columbus, Ohio, and to take down an Ohio State team that many thought was going to be right there in the college football playoff conversation for the whole season, it's quite the feat. And I'm not in the camp necessarily of thinking Ohio State, you can say Ohio State made mistakes, and they did. We can talk about that. I don't think the defense is very good at all under Ohio State. But you still had to play the game. And I don't want to say Ohio State gave them the game because to me, Oregon was in control the whole game and pulled away and made the plays when necessary. What were your thoughts from that game? I don't know if you got to watch it necessarily. Maybe you did. But overall, I was impressed with how the Ducks played.
Well, I think their ground game was huge. I mean, C.J. Verdell had a huge game for Oregon, and they established that early. I mean, he had a huge game to start off and then kept running the ball very well. Obviously, Ohio State couldn't stop them. Their defense looked soft, and that's the best way to explain it because Oregon found holes. They found little pockets they could throw the ball into. They didn't really have to throw the ball much. I threw it 35 times. Only completed 17 passes. You look at that stat line, you're like, they probably lost the game. But the way their offense played, how they had the ball only 29 minutes in the game. Ohio State had it 1 minute longer. So, honestly, you look at the box score for both teams. You split it up. You would think Ohio State won this game. They had almost 107 yards extra than Oregon did. So you're looking at it, you're thinking, okay, Ohio State ran away with this, but Oregon, like you said, had the big plays when they needed it the most. I mean, obviously they kind of slowed down in the second half. They started giving up scores late, and you thought that Ohio State was going to come back and win this game, but Oregon prevailed. Had an interception late in the game that really just put it to rest. So.
And 2, it's not to say that Ohio State doesn't have a talented team, but I think defensively they're missing some pieces like you talked about. They couldn't make that big play. And listen, we've seen this Buckeyes team in years past, Ralph. They've made the play. And this time it was Oregon with what about that little toe tap interception? Did you see that? That was a beautiful catch. Beautiful catch. Beautiful catch. Once again, Oregon defeats Ohio State. We vaulted them into 3rd place, Ralph, in our rankings. We may have to show that here in a little bit. But another game that was of interest and was interesting to watch was obviously what happened down in Fayetteville, Arkansas. Yes. Now, for a while, you always have to make sure, is it happening in Fayetteville or is it happening in Little Rock? You don't ever know, and Ralph, that frustrates you. But the thing is, and what's really big, is that this program in Arkansas, Sam Pittman, needed a win like this. I think they've established themselves as well as a program that's not going to be a bottom feeder in the SEC this year.
Yeah.
And more importantly for SEC fans, Ralph, they welcomed the Burn Orange, and they welcomed with a little bit of horns down. Hey, we're not syndicated. We can do that on this show.
We can do what we want.
We can do what we want to. What was your impressions from this game? Arkansas ran to the tune of over 300 yards, led by a Cam Newton-esque performance from KJ Jefferson. I mean, really, in all seriousness, he was phenomenal.
Well, I think Arkansas. I put it out a tweet the other day. Arkansas they're here. They're not officially back. I don't think, because people say they're back early on, and it turns out bad for them. But Arkansas said, "Welcome to the SEC. This is football down south, and this is how you play." They got beat up. Texas did, and obviously had no answer for anything Arkansas was doing. You said like Arkansas had 300+ rushing yards, and Sam Pittman, who is probably one of my favorite offensive line coaches I've ever seen coach, he said, "We're going to line up. We're going to get there. We're going to beat you on the ground, and we're going to beat you until you can't do anything about it." And they couldn't do anything about it. No running back had over 100 yards, but 47 total carries out of 7 players. Everyone had a chance to touch the ball for Arkansas. They did it with a purpose. They wanted to win the game. They won the game. And my favorite reaction, if you haven't seen it, it's on Twitter. There's a video of the Arkansas athletic director on the sideline talking to the head of security for the football team or football field, and he said, Do you want us to stop them from running on the field? And he said, no.
Ooh, yeah.
They have to storm the field. We have to celebrate this one.
And take the goalpost down.
And take the goalpost down, which they did. Props to Arkansas. They had a great game. Everyone overlooked this game. Everyone overlooked Arkansas this year because, they're still battling a lot of rebuild going on. But Sam Pittman has done a great job. He's a terrific coach. If you don't know who Sam Pittman is, just look up Pit Boss, because that's basically what they call him. So,
and that's appropriate for the state of Arkansas too.
Yeah,
I like that.
Huge, and I even thought about this. If you're an incoming freshman going to or top prospect in the area of Arkansas, and you're looking at maybe going to another SEC school, maybe going to Texas, because it's close. You look at this home win right here, you're like, wow, I want to play there now. So Arkansas really helped them out with recruiting in the future. And just having the fans there were crazy. They had a full stadium, which is the first time I think Arkansas's had in 5 or 6 years, honestly. And the fans were great. I think they did a very good job of giving home field advantage to Arkansas tonight.
Home field advantage was huge. I think they had the checkered crowd as well with that red and white across the stands. That was fantastic to watch. And not only, Ralph, is this kind of what I like about Sam Pittman, I think he's very authentic. I think that he embodies the players. I think sometimes when coaches, when teams make a coaching change, what they can do is they can necessarily say, we want someone who's going to put us on the map, who's going to be that splash hire. But Sam Pittman was not a splash hire.
No.
I mean, he's a rough and tough kind of guy, loves to run the football, but I think he embodies the culture of what Arkansas football is. The big difference, Ralph, is we were having the same conversation. I want to pose this to you. We were having the same conversation about a certain coach that embodied his program, and I hadn't told you this, and I'm going to throw it on you here. But now it's looking like he's on the hot seat, and his name's Ed Orgeron at LSU. We thought, and now we're seeing this. What is, in your opinion, Sam Pittman have to do? Now, listen, Ed Orgeron caught a flash in a pan. He had one of the greatest offenses ever assembled until the next year, it felt like, with Alabama.
Yeah.
But you talked about recruiting. This win over Texas was really big for the future of Arkansas, and you think that this could provide some opportunities, which is a very fertile recruiting ground in Arkansas, Texas, kind of that Louisiana area.
Yeah, I mean, it's huge. I mean, if you look at Arkansas's recruits, they're kind of built up around smaller guys. I mean, you don't have four and 5 star receivers and quarterbacks coming to Arkansas every year. I mean, Felipe Franks was probably the highest recruit last year for Arkansas, and obviously, he did what he could do for the 1 year he was there and the 10 games he played in. But Arkansas is going to have to build a reputation of a smash mouth football if they're going to keep doing this. And the years past, back to 2010, 2011, Arkansas's offensive line was probably the biggest in the SEC every single year. They're averaging 6'6", 6'7", 350 almost every year, and you don't see that unless you go to Wisconsin or Iowa. So Arkansas is definitely building up what they want to do for the future. Sam Pittman's leading that train right now, and in a few years, Arkansas could be a scary team in the West.
They could, and it's an SEC West is tough. That I want to go back to this, and Texas is going to be joining it, Ralph. 471 yards of total offense, 138 through the air, which is respectable, which shows you that Texas had to respect the passing game.
Yeah.
But 333 yards. And I'm going to tell you one thing. When you're averaging 7.1 yards per play, Ralph, we talked about going back to that Georgia-Clemson game. You went in depth on what it means to be an offensive lineman and get that push. It's safe to say Arkansas was getting that push, but how important was it to get to the second level against this Texas team? Because I think that's what can turn a good running game into a great, when you're not getting touched to the second level. And we saw a lot of that in this Arkansas run game.
Oh, yeah. I mean, if your lineman can get to the second level quick and your running back's right behind them, you're talking about a one-on-one with a safety, and the running back more than likely is going to either run them over or get past them. I mean, safeties are quick, but most of the time they're not big enough to tackle, full-size running backs, which in the SEC, you think of years past, Derrick Henry was a running back. He more than likely would play linebacker anywhere else.
True.
So, you're looking at the SEC, bigger running backs, even Bijan Robinson for Texas. I mean, he's a
good player. Very
talented. Very talented running back. And that's what Texas couldn't do. They couldn't get to that second level, and he was getting hit in the backfield so many times and having to run away or bounce out. And that's not what Texas wanted to do. Arkansas did not have that problem. They were able to move the ball upfield. They were able to hit the gaps quick, and they weren't bouncing out very much. And they were able to run the quarterback outside the pocket, let him scramble for a few yards and a few quarterback design runs, which obviously the defense fell for that inside trap run, and you break it out to the outside for 15, 20 yards. And KJ Jefferson's a very talented, very big quarterback, and he is able to move very quickly. So if you don't have a linebacker quick enough to track him down, there's no safety going to stop him.
No safety that's going to stop him. And two, when you add in the fact of KJ Jefferson, who is going to either run you over and he's looking for contact, that was impressive as well. Let's talk a little bit more, and let's quickly go through this for the next couple minutes. Iowa's defense dominated Ohio State. The Hawkeyes limited this Iowa State offense that was very talented, people thought, coming into the season. Real quickly, Ralph, your thoughts. Iowa, to me, back-to-back great defensive performances. They beat two back-to-back top 20 teams. Indiana was number 17 when they played them. They beat number 9 Iowa State. This team right now, with Ohio State's loss, people starting to think maybe Iowa can make a run. They're physical, and when you go play in Des Moines, that's a tough place to play. Iowa fans, once again, have a great environment. Yeah,
I mean, if you force Brock Purdy to be benched mid-game because of 3 interceptions, your defense is doing something right. You held Breece Hall under 70 yards and only have 1 touchdown. Iowa's defense did everything right. They were able to control the line of scrimmage. They were able to beat them up front. They had their whole entire secondary locked down on receivers. Brock Purdy didn't know what the heck he was doing. I was prepared, man. They really were. And, the best way to prove it is that Iowa owns Iowa State. Yeah. And I completely agree with that statement because you go out there and beat them every year like this. It shows you how talented of a program they really are and how great coach they are. I mean, your coach has been there for 20 plus years, and he's obviously done something right there. And he doesn't really change much. It's just he brings in the talent and they execute properly.
They execute properly. They have a tight end that's seemingly drafted in the NFL every 3 or 4 years. They have an offensive line that's big and physical. I mean, this is an Iowa team. I'd love to see what they could do against Ohio State, especially if the Buckeyes don't get that defense fixed. That's going to be something to keep an eye on. Real quick, before we go to our commercial break, we bring in our guest, Ralph. Want to get your take on the quarterback battle in Gainesville. Florida's taking on Alabama. Emory Jones, while obviously 5-star recruit, he's up the road from us here in Columbus. But it hasn't quite lived up to the billing so far, and I don't know if it hasn't quite lived up, or just the play of the man wearing number 15. And I won't say right now, I think number 15 should not be worn in a Florida uniform anymore. But get your take real quick. What do you think on that? What was your take from what Florida does heading in? They've had 2 tune-up games, but now heading into what is going to be their toughest test of the season.
Well, honestly, right now, everyone talked about Emory Jones beginning of the year, that this could be his year to shine. And I was behind it because I think he never had a chance to play. And it's been a rough career for him, obviously, because he's played behind some very talented quarterbacks. Anthony Richardson is now that next quarterback who's going to step in. I think Florida feels more comfortable letting him go out there and do what he can do properly. I feel like they limit Emory Jones too much. And Anthony Richardson, 3 for 152 with 2 touchdowns. Emory Jones, 14-22, 7 yard or 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. Now Richardson also can run, and when I mean run, 4 carries for 115 yards and had a long of 80 yards. I mean, you got to put your playmaker out there. And I think Richardson's their playmaker. Emory Jones, I said, deserves respect. He had to put up a lot through his a few years at Florida and never got a shot. And I just feel like that kind of gloomed on him for so long, and it just doesn't work out. It happens. It's how football is these days. But you got to go with your hot hand, and I think Richardson's our hot hand. He's gonna give you your best chance against Florida, honestly. Now, if he struggles, you have a senior quarterback right behind him who knows what you guys to do, and if he can step in and play properly, you might have a chance. So go with your hot hand at first. He struggles, you're just fine with the backup.
Just fine with the backup. The big thing about Richardson, he was nursing a hamstring injury, so they may have to force Emory Jones in there. We're going to keep an eye on that situation as well. Ralph, we're going to go to commercial. We're going to bring him in, and then we're going to come back to you to talk a little bit about the Georgia Bulldogs and a little bit more about what
Cook's Place began serving our signature hot dogs in 1985 from a cart on Broadway. We still serve the best hot dogs and scrambled dogs in town at the corner of Moon and Miller Road and at the landings. Our friendly staff won't let you leave hungry. Come in and eat to the beat with our 50s jukebox. Cook's Place, fast service, great people, awesome food. What are you waiting for?
Back here on the Crowder Booth Live, Bryce Coon and Zach McKinnell. Zach, listen, you have the jerseys in the background. You got the hoodie on. We know who you're going to talk about, but first off, my friend, how you been doing? How's the early season of college football been treating you?
Oh, man, it's been so amazing to actually talk about real football and breaking down some actual X's and O's rather than, talking storylines all the time. But, man, been good. Glad to be back on. Big fan of the show. So anytime I can come on, man, it's a great day.
It's a great day indeed to have you on. We're talking a little bit about Auburn. And first off, obviously you have the Blue Bloods podcast. I was tuning in. You were actually live doing some SWAC talk with the game this weekend between ULM and Jackson State. And then you hopped on here. So you're a busy man. We appreciate you taking time. You also are a contributor for Fly War Eagle. So I know you're kind of in tune with what's happening with Auburn. But here's the big thing that I want to know. And we had a mailbag question about it today. I addressed it, but I also wanted to leave some room for you to talk. And I'll give you my opinion, but you're the guest. I want to hear yours. Auburn, to me, has not been tested really yet. We're going to find out this weekend what exactly this team's made of. But I think, and would you agree, you still have to execute against those lesser teams, and they've done that, so there are some positives to take away.
Yeah, anyone who, it's funny, Auburn Twitter is always the first to everything. They've been the hashtag is Bo Nix's year, and he's going to play better than he ever has. And it was a whole thing. And there's a lot of people who are on that bandwagon. I'm not one of them. I've taken everything thus far with a grain of salt. But like you said, we haven't seen this type of execution even against lesser opponents for Auburn. Yeah. The fact that we had to make adjustments at halftime this weekend because Alabama State's defense is legit. I cover a lot of SWAC football. They have some guys who are probably NFL prospects on Alabama State's team. As much as people want to, downgrade, it was a 62-0 win. They struggled early at times, and Bo Nix didn't look great in the pocket, and that concerns me. But what they've done is Brian Harsin knows his strength, and it's Tank Bigsby, and out of nowhere, Jaquez Hunter. I mean, he came out of he was one of those signees that Auburn just happened to have a scholarship open up, and they offered him out of the blue out of Mississippi, and he ended up coming. He looks like the real deal. Averaged 18 yards per carry this weekend. But the biggest thing for me is Harsin. He never lets his team slack up. Like, I had the feeling when as I was watching Auburn football under Malzahn, there were times where you could tell they were checked out, and that seemed to kind of become the culture of Auburn is we check out in small games and we play down to our opponents. Harsin has an entirely different culture in which he doesn't want you to play down to your opponent. You're going to play Auburn football regardless on who's on the other side of you. And, for me, we had a lot of questions about the offensive line, a lot of questions about the defensive line, and also the wide receiving core. A lot of those have been answered, especially O-line and defensive line. Now, we have a huge test this weekend, but for right now, I take everything with a grain of salt, but I'm very glad to see that they're executing and that there were actual adjustments made, and I never thought under Malzahn I'd ever see Auburn run a curl route, and it was amazing to see some of the route tree come out. I saw a post, I saw a corner, I saw a comeback. Like, it's so nice to see receivers actually getting to be receivers in this Mike Bobo offense.
I think we talked about the offseason. You were talking a little bit earlier. You finally have games to talk about. You face Akron, which was statistically one of the worst, if not the worst, FBS program in college football in 2020. Then you take on Alabama State, who at their level they have talent, just overmatched in this game. But you head into week 3. So from your vantage point, I know you probably do what I do. You rewatch some of the condensed versions of the games on YouTube. Mm-hmm. When you do this, what are some things against this Penn State defense that played very well against Wisconsin in week 1 that you can take away and say, okay, that could still be there against Penn State? Because some of the plays, when you play these games, you have to say, okay, that window of opportunity may not be there. What are some things that you felt, you're talking about the route tree or what this offense can do against? You talked about the run game. It's very good. The offensive line, while they've played good, they've had their struggles in recent seasons. They're going to face a real test this weekend.
Yeah, so the one I'll start with like a positive thing I saw on film, and then also a negative. As we're getting ready to do our our in-depth game preview on our channel, the running game is going to be a factor this weekend for Auburn. They allowed Wisconsin to run the ball right down their throat, control the clock, and it really almost cost them the game early. But if you can't stop Tank Bigsby, Auburn's going to roll this weekend. You cannot let Tank Bigsby get loose on your defense, because what's going to happen is your defense is going to wear down, because Auburn and Brian Harsin isn't going to make the mistake Malzahn did. The most frustrating thing for Gus Malzahn for me is he would run the ball, and it'd be so consistent, and then he'd be like, Nix, I need you to throw it 30 times on the road against Georgia. That it can't happen like that. And Harsin will stick to the run. Jaquez Hunter and Tank Bigsby are going to be a factor, and I think Auburn's going to be able to run the ball. The bad part about that defense is they got some pass rushers. As bad as they are in run defense, they will get after the quarterback. And the worst thing for Auburn is they have a secondary that's opportunistic. They will they will get picks if you make bad reads. And Bo Nix on the road in a whiteout with College game day, I have yet to see him step up on the biggest stage on the road. His most notable one was 3 for 17 against Georgia last year in Athens. And then every single time he goes on the road, he plays terrible. The only game on the road I've seen him play good at was Arkansas 2 years ago, and that Chad Morris squad was not going to give him much issues.
It's not the Arkansas squad we saw on Saturday night. We'll say
exactly. Exactly. I'm very worried about Arkansas right now, but the way they were able to make Graham Mertz, who was also a highly touted recruit in his recruiting class, I believe the #1 pro style in his class, they made him look atrocious. They picked them off multiple times, and they turned those turnovers into points. If Auburn puts the game on Bo Nix, they're losing this game, because Bo Nix is not ready for the moment. And we're going to find out if that offensive line has just been playing overmatched teams or they're legit. I think they're legit in run blocking. I have a lot of concerns in terms of protecting Bo Nix, because once that internal clock gets sped up for Nix, he never can seem to slow it down later on in the game. And so even when that offensive line gets into the rhythm and gives him a clean pocket, he's bailing, and he just can't make the throws outside the pocket to win games like this.
Now, we haven't seen him in situations necessarily like that for a lengthy amount of time here in 2021. Is that kind of the hope? And before we go to the defensive side of the ball, is that kind of the hope that Mike Bobo and this new staff has helped the maturation process of Bo Nix? That's something maybe – I mean, like you said, the game that sticks out in my mind, because I was tuned into it, was Georgia Auburn last year. At some point in the game, it looked like Bo Nix and Tank Bigsby were playing backyard football because there was no protection. Georgia was blitzing at will. If that starts to happen, obviously you can only do so much with your offensive line. But if the offensive line gives him some time, we know Bo Nix has that happy feet. Is that kind of the hope for the fan base that, hey, you got a new coach, you got some, we've kind of hopefully we've settled that down?
I would hope so. If he hasn't, then you have to look to Finley in this spot. And I hate saying a quarterback should lose his job, any kid should lose his job. But if you can't do it on the field, then Auburn's a good enough team where if the quarterback's there, they can make some noise, especially with A&M losing their starting quarterback. LSU looks atrocious this season. The door's open for that #2 SEC West spot. Auburn's got to have the quarterback play. And if Nix has been given the longest leash of any quarterback in the country in terms of being allowed to make his mistakes, being allowed to give the benefit of the doubt. The time is now. Like, you're a third-year starter. You have as many games of experience that matters. You've been in every environment. You've seen everything. If you can't do it now, I can't see you ever getting it done. If the key for me is for Auburn, if Bo Nix has to throw the ball more than 25 times, Auburn's probably going to lose this game.
Wow. I like that. 'Cause that would mean the
I
run game wouldn't be doing much.
Exactly. If the game gets put on Bo Nix, I think Auburn loses this matchup. But even if we lose, this is a great learning experience for Brian Harsin, Mike Bobo, and even Derek Mason on the defensive side of the ball. Who are your horses, and who do you need to kind of take a step back? Like, what is the rest of the season going to be like? We haven't got tested. All the chemistry should be there. All the reps have been there for the young guys. Now it's time to see who's really ready for the moment. And if Bo Nix in this O-line isn't ready, Auburn's ceiling is drastically decreased this season.
I was going to ask you about Auburn's defense, but you pointed out a great point there. So I want to bring this up because this is something I was having a conversation off air. I talked with Ralph about this. I talked with some people about this as well. 2017 was Kirby Smart's second year at Georgia. Now, this is Brian Harsin's first year. Georgia went on the road. And up until that point, newer college football fans, remember, they feel like Georgia's been in college football playoff contention. They haven't. 2017 was that first year of the run of the national title. They go up to Notre Dame, and it was almost like you talk about atmosphere, you talk about the game. They squeaked one out, but it was like, we can compete. If Auburn wins this game, now listen, Penn State has not, obviously last year was an anomaly, I felt like, for Penn State. But Penn State's one of those teams that you could pencil in almost for at least a New Year's Six bowl or one of the, I call them the Florida Bowls, Capital One Bowl, Outback Bowl, kind of like that. If Auburn goes up there and let's just say they win one late field goal or something like that, do you feel like that gives this program kind of a building block win for Harsin where, I mean, you get into conference play, it's going to be tough, but this is one where you say, hey, we can compete and could set up, a season that could be very interesting.
I absolutely think so. I mean, when you look at the schedule after this, I have it pulled up here. I'm looking at the schedule, and I don't see a game other than Alabama that you can't potentially compete at. The Georgia game will be tough, but we don't know what JT Daniels is going to be like moving forward with that injury. There's been a lot of rumors coming out all over the place about how serious it is. Now, Stetson Bennett put it on Auburn last year, but
that's crazy. Yeah.
But if Auburn plays like half of the game that they could have, that game is probably not as big of a blowout. Plus, it's in Jordan-Hare this year. I don't know what it is. Anytime that game's in Jordan-Hare, Auburn's got a shot. So you get Georgia and Auburn at home. I mean, Georgia and Alabama at home. So you have those games, and you're going to have a shot. I don't think they really have a shot at Alabama, but I know everyone.
I don't know if much of anybody has a shot at Alabama. To be honest,
I said on our show, Bama should be 2 touchdown favorites over everybody. But you look at the schedule. Georgia State's next. Probably you should win that game convincingly. LSU looks atrocious moving forward. Just lost their starting running back today. They can't stop a nosebleed on the defensive side of the ball. But it's going to be, can you break the streak since 99 of winning in Death Valley? Whatever. But Harsin's a new coach, so he probably doesn't care about the streak. But then after that, Arkansas, Ole Miss, A&M, Mississippi State, and South Carolina. You got some tough games in there, especially Ole Miss, but none of those seem, I guess, out of reach for Auburn if you win this Penn State game. And so for me, this is really going to determine are you going to be going up or down going into conference play? This is everything. This is Bo Nix's confidence. And I know, we just talked about him. That's the number one thing. I think the defense will be fine because Penn State's quarterback is, I'm going to keep it 100 with you, not very good. Sean Clifford is Bo Nix, but just a little bit older. And so it's really
less mobile, probably.
Yeah, much less mobile. But for me, I think the ceiling goes probably 10-2 if they win this game. But if you lose this game, I think the ceiling is probably 8-4. Because for me, I don't think if you lose this game and you're going into LSU looking at, man, we might be 3-2 if we lose this game, and then you got Georgia the next week. I think all the pressure is going to be on them, and I don't think they're going to respond as well as most people think.
Yeah, it's going to have. How do you respond to success? How do you respond to failures? Quickly, got a question for you. It goes with Bo. Gavin Hart. If Bo has to scramble and try to make plays, why is Finley, in your opinion? And Gavin feels like he's a less athletic or elusive. Maybe he showed some turnover issues. Why would he be a better option in your opinion?
So I'm not saying if like the offensive line falls apart, you got to bench Nix. What I'm saying is if Nix shows the same issues of escaping a pocket when he doesn't have to, you're going to have to go with Finley. Finley is so big and strong. He has a much better pocket presence because he knows he can fight off some of those defenders. He's 6'6", 250. it's a lot harder to tackle him than it is Bo Nix. And also Finley showed, as much as they got blown out by Auburn last year, Finley showed he will stay in the pocket and take hits. He did not bail from the pocket when Auburn was tearing them apart when they came to Jordan-Hare last year. It's just, for me, the offense gets so down on Bo Nix. When you watch last year, I don't know how much Auburn you watched last year, Seth Williams checked out of games because Bo Nix was so atrocious. At that South Carolina game, they got into it on the sidelines, and Seth Williams had a curl route, and Bo Nix threw it, and he saw J.C. Horn out of his like, I guess, his peripheral. He just stepped out of the way, and J.C. Horn takes that for a pick. You could tell the offense got down on Bo Nix. So if I'm Brian Harsin, I'm seeing that the offensive line's doing his job. It's got a good pocket, but he's bailing and throwing the ball away, and he's 4 for 18 like he was against Georgia. For the health of the team, for the morale of the team, you have to make a change. And I know it's tough to throw Finley in that moment on the road in a whiteout against Penn State, but you're going to risk losing your team if you don't.
You talked, again, we appreciate the comment. You talked about the quarterback play of Penn State. We've talked a lot about Penn State's defense. Let's flip it real quick here. What, in your opinion, does Auburn's defense have to do? They've played well. To me, they've seemed, and I didn't watch both of the games live, but went back and watched the condensed version. They're doing a good job of rallying to the ball, game tackling, per se. You see a lot of Navy jerseys around the ball carrier. What do they have to do? To me, it would be limit the big play, because if you get a big play in Penn State, it's going to me, you got to take the crowd out of it. But to you, maybe schematically, what does this defense have to watch out for?
Schematically, Jahan Dotson on the outside is an absolute monster at wide receiver. He is legit, and he was really the key to them pulling out that Wisconsin win with his big touchdown play. Like you said, the explosive plays. He's explosive. He's probably one of the better wide receivers they've had in a long time. The key for them, though, I'm not worried about Auburn's run defense. Noah Cain, as highly rated as he was, hasn't shown me much this year. And I think Auburn's D-line matches up very well with the O-line. And the Auburn linebacking core is one of the best in the country. McLean, Papo, all those guys are fine. They'll be great in run. The one thing I saw against Alabama State I was very concerned about was the short passes. Auburn out in space was not making the plays like I thought they should. They were getting beat by these wide receivers at Alabama State, which they should have overmatched. And that's where Sean Clifford lives. He lives in these short, high percentage pass ranges. And if you just let him dink and dunk down the field, he will dink and dunk you right out of that stadium with a huge L on your record. So you have to stop. You have to stop the underneath stuff. As much as an explosive play would hurt you, if you let Sean Clifford get comfortable and you never put him in a low percentage situation, that is a recipe for disaster. And they have to keep him out of 3rd and short. Auburn, if that Auburn D-line is good enough where if you get them backed up to 3rd and 8 to about a 3rd and 12, they have the dogs on the front of that on the front of that defense to go after the quarterback. You look at Colby Wooden, you look at Papo as a blitzer, you look at McLean as a blitzer, you look at that interior. I've been impressed with Tony Fair, the transfer from UAB at D tackle. Also Marcus Harris from Kansas, the DN transfer. All those guys have played lights out. You even got TD Moultrie in his senior year, 4-year guy. They have the pass rushers, but if you allow Penn State to churn the clock out, weigh your defense down, you're going to lose this game, because it's what we saw. Kevin Steele had an outstanding defense for like 4 years at Auburn, but Malzahn couldn't move the ball. And once they got tired down the stretch, that's where you saw those big plays happen. And so you got to watch the dink and dunk with Clifford, avoid the explosive play, and just get after the pass, the quarterback. Because last year, the pass rush was the biggest thing missing for Auburn. They could not get to the quarterback, even if they wanted to. And that was a huge problem, I guess, in terms of what went wrong last year.
Obviously, it's going to be a great game. College Game Day is going to be in the building. Zach, I don't want you to give a prediction because I know you have your preview show, but where can people who Auburn fans want to tune in, where can they find you on YouTube, social media as well to kind of get that preview video leading up to Saturday?
Man, I appreciate it. It's just the Blue Bloods on YouTube. I believe it's youtube.com/C/the Blue Bloods if you're looking for a direct link. But just look up the Blue Bloods. We're the first search result, man. We do I think it's 10 to 12 previews every week just for the biggest games in college football. And then we'll have our recaps over the weekend and things like that. And it's just a cycle now. And I can't be happier to talk college football. I do need you to do me a favor, though. I need you to get with Section 103. They got some awesome stuff. I almost bought some Georgia Tech stuff, even though I don't even root for Georgia Tech, I got to get some Auburn gear because I will buy it because they got some awesome stuff on there, man.
Listen, we're going to show their ad right after you get done, but I was talking the other day. They want to bring in some Auburn stuff. Listen, when you get the Southeast, you have some – to me, Auburn has one of the best retro logos with the Auburn Tiger. I love that. It would be feature some good stuff. Zach, we appreciate it, man. We're going to catch up with you later on in the season, but thank you so much for coming on. Best of luck to you the rest of the way, and, hey, college football's back. We're excited about it.
Absolutely, man. Have a great one.
We appreciate Zach for coming on and talking. Hey, and now we're going to be featuring another ad. Ralph, you're back in the building. Zach had some great content. Ralph turned his camera off. He got so nervous. But, hey, we got a new ad right here. It's going to be a ton of fun to watch out. Hey, have you ever heard of Section 103? Section 103 is some amazing gear made by a Georgia Tech grad himself. It's fantastic. You got the ATL with the Waffle House right there. I've got a shirt. You need to get a shirt. A couple things for you that you need to know. You can get the official Tech Gold apparel, which is nowhere else, with the apparel of the new word mark. And you can also get that ATL logo, Ralph, which we love. We love to see. It's a ton of fun. You get right here, Section 103. And the reason is because the young man who has the company, that's where his section seats are. You see right there in the bottom left, Bobby Dodd Stadium, the Tech hoodie. I've got a hoodie coming in. I've also got that shirt on the right. Welcome to Atlanta. And guess what, Ralph, we got to tell the people this because this is the best news we have about it. Truth be told, the best news we have is you get 10% off. Use the code Crowded Booth at section103.com. Get yourself a nice shirt on your first purchase, shirt, hoodie, all that kind of stuff. It's right up there, presented by Section 103, right over there above Ralph's head. We're excited to have them on board. If you'd like to get on board, if you're a local Columbus business, if you're a sports apparel brand, we'd love to have you as well. We got Cook's Place hot dogs down there in the bottom. Speaking of that, Ralph, we need to go. We need to go get ourselves one of the best scramble dog in town. Well, not the other place. No, I said the best. The best. The best. The best. Hey, we're listening. We're talking. You were listening, and you were hearing what Zach McKinnell had to say. We appreciate him coming on. What I like about Zach, he's an Auburn fan, but he's not afraid to criticize the team.
No.
Obviously, there things have to be done, Ralph. We talked about the Auburn-Georgia game. Let's talk a little bit about those Georgia Bulldogs because this is a team and the Georgia offense that was a no-show against Clemson. Now, in my opinion, we had a part of the Mailbag Monday this morning. We had one of the articles or one of the questions was, what can we learn? And I told Robert from LaGrange, I said, Robert, I know about as much as you do because – and I want to know if you agree with me because obviously I think you could chalk up week 1 to you played at what is a top defense in the country.
Easily top 10. Easily.
Top 10, top 5 defense, especially on that front seven.
Yeah.
You had a slew of injuries where Georgia returned less than 15% of their production from last season. Anytime you do that, that's going to hurt from a skill position standpoint. You go into week 2, the mailman delivered. He delivered, and he delivered a big way, tying the school record for touchdown passes in a game with 5. Ralph, to me, I think this offense is good. I think the offense is talented. And I'll say this, they executed against a lesser foe, but don't get UAB confused with an Akron or a ULM or anything like that. This is a UAB team that was a top 15, top 10, a top 5 team in yards per play last season as a defense. They're a good team. They're going to be the Conference USA favorites. They may even head over to the Fun Belt. Who knows what's going to happen? But I think this UAB team is a good one. We're going to see them do well. And also, they beat Jacksonville State, who beat Florida State. So there you go. There's that as well. But seriously, in all seriousness, Ralph, I think the offense for Georgia, it's good. They're going to figure some things out. They have some time to figure it out. But in your opinion, I think we just can say they're going to run the ball. But Stetson Bennett, holy cow. I mean, the man – I'm convinced because some of the throws he was making, and you pointed this out last year, he was underthrowing. I don't think he underthrew anybody on
when
Saturday.
You have a receiver that's 30 yards passing the other corner, you don't have to. You can underthrow him if you want to, and it's going to be a touchdown. I mean, Stetson looked good. He looked comfortable back there. I think he stepped up when he was told to. Obviously, JT Daniels was hurt. You're playing a lesser foe, like you said, but he came in and delivered. I mean, that's what he did. That's what he did. He's a leader on this team. A lot of people look up to him, I think, and, they should. He went through a lot last year. You're talking about a guy who started out as a second-team quarterback and then, becoming a starting quarterback, week 1 led you to a win against Arkansas when all hope was lost, first half. So he did exactly what he could do all year. Obviously losses to Florida and Alabama, which were very, very good teams last year. But to the people who are angry with Stetson playing, obviously you don't want to see someone succeed. You hate fun. I mean,
You just don't enjoy fun.
You don't enjoy letting someone have a moment, and that's what he had on Saturday. He had a great moment, 5 touchdowns. That's obviously his career high. Like you said, tied the school record. I'm sure he's excited about it. And I think Kirby said he does exactly what he needs to do when we ask him to do it. So
you've been high on Carson Beck. And Carson Beck showed some flashes as well. And I think no one knew quite who was going to start till about Saturday morning at 10:30 a.m. Because you had Carson Beck's camp saying that he was going to start 11 o'clock, 10:30, 11, whatever, 30-minute difference. But I'll say this. People, I saw some tweets saying Carson Beck should transfer immediately. Kirby Smart said, I don't think that I think fans took this game, thought it was like a second G day.
Yeah.
And UAB is a very formidable opponent in that aspect. We appreciate Anna Leary right there. Appreciate you, Anna, over there on Facebook tuning in. UAB is a very formidable opponent. They're going to cause some teams some problems. But I also think that this Georgia team, with the combination of and I'm not counting, and I'm not going to count Auburn as being number one, because the reason Auburn's number one in scoring defense is because Georgia gave up 7 points, but really the defense didn't. It was a pick six. So technically Georgia is the top scoring defense. But when you look at this team, they're well balanced defensively. I mean, the UAB team the Blazers had no ability to do anything they wanted to offensively. They limited to 174 yards. Meanwhile, Georgia, Kirby Smart said, Ralph, and we've said this recently, they needed explosive plays. And I want to read off to you some of these explosive plays. Jermaine Burton, a 73-yard touchdown pass. I mean, Brock Bowers took one to the house for young freshman tight end. I mean,
can I say something real quick? Brock Bowers, a 6'4", 230-pound tight end who's a freshman, took one to the house. No one can catch that.
Did you see the catch? Did you see that?
Yeah, I saw it. I saw the replay of it. I saw him.
Can I just say it was an 89-yard. The angle that the safety had, it was gone in a split second. But I want to go back. I mean, you had a 73-yard touchdown pass to Jermaine Burton, a 12-yard pass to Kenny McIntosh, a 61-yard pass to Arian Smith, 9-yard pass to Bowers, 89-yard pass to Bowers. Justin Robinson caught one from Carson Beck. But a 20-yard pass from Beck to Demas, or I'm sorry, that was a 20-yard pick six that Georgia had. But they needed to be more explosive. We saw that. So, Ralph, who is this offense? Do you believe they're better than what they are in Clemson, but maybe not as good as we saw against UAB when they faced, let's say, Auburn on October 9th?
Well, I think they are a lot better, but I think injuries held them back. I think JT Daniels was hurt before the game, honestly. Yeah, people are saying he got hurt during the game, but the way he was sitting in the pocket and throwing the ball, he looked like he was hurt the whole entire game. Daniels healthy, the offensive line healthy, the receivers healthy. They're a very powerful offense. I'm not going to say running back, because you can have one running back get hurt and you still have three more who are just as good. So
Dejon Edwards from Colquitt County, and I know Trent Griner has tuned in occasionally on this show, and he's from that area, is probably the best. He's a 4-star. He's probably the best fifth-string running back in the country.
He looks like he's 35 and has a family.
Exactly. So you say that. Hey, don't say that, Ralph. Joe Simpson got kicked off of Braves TV because he said Juan Soto looked old. So you need to watch out. He may get canceled. But that's interesting anyways. No, talk to me for real, though. I mean, I think that this offense is a little bit better than what we saw in Clemson. They're somewhere in the middle of these two games. You agree with me. You're never as bad as you think you are, but you're also never as good as you think you are.
I mean, you can go in and think you're the best team in the country and get smacked around like North Carolina did week one. You think you're so good and you hit a roadblock and then you're just stumped and you got to build off of that. So I think Georgia's offense needed this game to really just run the score up, score a lot of points, score early, score fast. And I think that's what Georgia did. It gives you a lot of momentum going to South Carolina. Obviously, South Carolina has had 2 struggle wins. They're still figuring out their quarterback situation there. And there's a lot of things going on there. They're obviously not horrible, but they're not the South Carolina team we saw the past few years. So Georgia has another week of a kind of let's run the score up a little bit more.
Technically 2 weeks, Ralph. They play Vanderbilt the week after that.
That's just not fun. Don't do that to them, okay? Look, they're 1-1. They have a win against the Power 5 program.
Vegas.
Look, they have a win against the Power 5 program this year. Props to them. That's the only one they'll have all year. So as of right now, I think Georgia's offense is fine. depending on who plays quarterback Saturday. I want to see who steps up, because if Daniels does not play Saturday and the injury is a lot worse than we think it is, like Zach said, you're talking about Beck and Bennett going for starting position this week.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And you hadn't even talked about Brock Vandegrift, who's kind of waiting in the wings. I don't think they want to use him, to be honest.
I think he sits in his red shirt all year. I don't think he ever steps on the field as a starter just because they want to save him. But the comment about this Carson Beck transferring, I do feel like if it not by the end of the year he is not playing, he might transfer. Because
if Daniels is hurt.
Well, obviously, if Daniels is hurt and Bennett's a quarterback and you don't get another chance, you're sitting there waiting for nothing, honestly, because they have quarterbacks coming in and already there that they're looking forward to playing next year or next 2 years. So,
well, and I'm in the camp of this. I don't think you coach for the transfer portal. You don't put a guy in just so he doesn't transfer. I think you have to play the better player. And Kirby Smart has made time and time again. He feels like that Stetson Bennett calmed them down a little bit because they did have a lot of young guys out there in the field. He provided some poise, a calming presence. Real quick, Ralph, before we shift focus to end the show, Clay Helton fired as the USC head coach. Quickly, we're just going to touch on this before we close the show. Give me one person that you have in mind that can touch that job. We'll dive more into this later on in a podcast episode. But who's just one guy? Give me one guy. Because I've got mine right here. You go.
You go first, because I had to remember. I can't remember his name.
Well, when I say mine, it's going to hurt your feelings. So I don't want to say. I don't want to do that.
No one,
okay.
If you say Chip Lindsey, it's not hurt my feelings.
It's not. Well, it's the man who broke Chip Lindsey's heart, and Hugh Freeze. Okay, I'm going to say Hugh Freeze is going to get a call, and maybe Luke Fickell as well. They may try to pull him out to the West Coast. But who you rolling with? I've got Hugh Freeze as my guy that I think that they would have to go with. He's got a high flying offense. He's shown the ability to coach a high flying offense at Ole Miss as well. What do you go with?
Golly, I feel like just stick with their coach, the interim coach, Dante Williams. I mean, he's been there around the program. He's been around, Helton. Obviously, you don't want something with Helton, but you got to go with someone who the program trusts. And until you find that guy, keep him in there. And obviously, if you can't get a coach in the offseason, obviously USC is a very tempting job. Like I said with Steve Sarkisian last year, Texas is a very tempting job for him. Hugh Freeze, not a bad choice, but is he going to give up liberty where he's just living life right now? Or, going to go all the way to the West Coast and have to build a brand new recruiting ground for himself. So that's a lot of things you factor in for coaching there. I just say keep the guys who are there, and unless you get a coach who's from the area who knows the recruiting grounds and who people trust in that program. I mean, you got to have the guys who are in your program right now, those athletes, make sure they stay who you bring in, because look at Tennessee last year when they fired Pruitt, a lot of guys left.
Yeah, they sure did. It's the balance of saying, do we want to keep, and maybe it's not the best decision, but we want to keep certain players a la Michael Williams in tow. We want to keep someone familiar with the program because we know Michael Williams and his relationship with the defensive line coach and D coordinator out at USC. Or do you bring in that breath of fresh air that might be the better long-term option, Ralph? It may be. You don't know. It'll be interesting to see. Gavin Hart with Lane Kiffin. He thinks the Lane train. I don't know. I don't know if
he ain't going back to USC. That ain't going to happen.
And that's interesting, too, because I saw another media entity say Steve Sarkisian was the top option. I don't think that Steve Sarkisian would head back to USC. I mean, he's got fertile recruiting gowns. I don't know. They may not. They may not. Ralph, we appreciate obviously our guests. We appreciate our sponsors as we wrap up tonight's show. The final thing we're going to talk about: the Atlanta Braves won 2 of 3 from the. That would be impossible to win 3 of 2. They won 2 of 3 from the Marlins. They're heading in. They've got a tough spot. They've got a tough schedule. The Phillies don't, but they got a 4.5 game lead. What's your prediction? How is this thing shaking out? Is Atlanta going to hoist an NL East banner for the 4th straight season?
Yes. I mean, I still think this team is better than any other team in the NL East. You can look at, contracts and everything the Mets have and the Phillies have, and you would think the Phillies and Mets are better teams, but it doesn't matter how much money you give these guys. It's about the guys, how they put out on the field. And the Braves have done a very good job with how they did it on the trade deadline. Soler, Jock Peterson, Richard Rodriguez, Eddie Rosario. I mean, just out of nowhere, just stepping up to the plate and hitting dingers for us. That's all we needed. So the Braves are still in good contention right now. I feel comfortable with them playing the way they are right now. Pitching's been it's slacking a little bit right now. It's been dominant in the past few weeks, but
Mm-hmm.
the past week and a half has been kind of letting down. But it's going to pick back up. The bullpen will get there. No one's bullpen is perfect every week. I can promise you that.
Yeah.
Everyone struggles.
And the
Will
Phillies
Smith-
bullpen's atrocious. ERA
Well,
over 6.
Will Smith, 9 out of 10 of his last saves have not been blown. So Will Smith's getting there. I feel like obviously we told 100 times he's not an elite closer because he don't throw 110 miles an hour like most people do. But if they get the outs, I can care less who's up there.
Careless is up there. If they get the win, who cares? Hey, listen, we appreciate it. We appreciate everything from our intro to Richard Leary. We appreciate, obviously, Cook's Place sponsoring the show. We appreciate Section 103. Ralph, tell them where they can go on our website right there below you. Crowdedbooth.com. We had some good stuff come out today. We had, obviously, our Preps Player of the Week. Congratulations. The Central Phoenix City Red Devils have taken 2 in a row, Ralph. We had Caleb Nix this past week that did a fantastic job. But we're going to be searching on Friday night. So if you're a coach watching, if you're a player watching, make sure to, or if you see this, make sure to send in those stats. We have some great people who do in the area. And listen, I'm telling you, growing up in the Chattahoochee Valley area, there's not the coverage that there should be for high school football in this area. So we're here to provide that for you as well. We appreciate it. Everyone have a fantastic evening. And I'm going to tease it, Ralph. We may have one of the most electric guests on a podcast that we've ever had, and that's including Josh Brown of Knockoma Nation. We may have one of the most electric guests ever. Finalizing those details, be on the lookout. It won't come out this week, but in the next couple of weeks, make sure you're staying tuned on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Anchor. Make sure to check us out on social media. And if you're on YouTube, make sure to follow and subscribe. And guess what? We're going to be live on Wednesday with another episode of Crowded Booth Live. And then we have a Georgia Tech segment coming out every Tuesday evening at 7:30, and it's called The Swarm. So it's called Swarm Talk. We're going to be talking with fans about that. Ralph, we had a great opportunity on Twitter Spaces that I hosted. We had, at one point, Ralph, we had Florida's linebackers coach. We had like 7 recruits. Liberty's football account was on there.
Yeah.
It was very interesting, and you were part of it. You wanted to chime in with a little bit of banter, but I didn't let you. It's okay. You had to go to bed. But listen, we appreciate everyone for tuning in. It's been fun. Have a fantastic rest of your evening. Go watch some Monday Night Football. And, hey, Ralph, I'm going to beat you in fantasy this week.
You are, because Patrick Mahomes took over for you. So
Let's go. Patty Mahomes for the win. Good night, everyone.
Pile in here and make yourself